Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is brought to you by the Unger Real Estate Group, powered by eXp Realty, proudly serving Orange, Seminole, and Lake counties. Call 407-790-9957 or visit WeSellOrlando.net. What's going on, night fans? Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you. Eric, I've got my national championship T-shirts ready to rock. I got my hat. I got my poster.
Which one? Because there's only one that's legit. There's one that's legit that I'm wearing, actually. And that's the Dan Le Batard National Championship. That's the one. That's the one to get.
I've got a few of those. I might frame
This is the only one I'm wearing. This is the only one I'm wearing because it's the one that I actually care about.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about UCF's national championship claim. We're going to talk about basketball, who just came up short in the game against UConn.
Yes, I'm going to be very testy, just like both teams were in this game.
This is going to be great. You're not going to want to miss this one. Lots to talk about this week, and this is our first show since the Peach Bowl when I was driving back with my son in the back of the car. So. Remember, you can hit us up at blackandgoldbanneret.com for all the latest news and analysis in the world of UCF sports. You can also reach out to us on Facebook at facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret and on Twitter at UCF_Banneret. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, like we talked about there, us individually. I'm at Jeff_Sharon. Eric is at Eric Lopez Elo. Also hit up Spokes_Murphy. For our buddy Brian Murphy, and _DS Warden. Derek Warden just posted his photo gallery from the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl today, and it is glorious. Glorious. I tell you, it is the best work he's done yet, and he's done some pretty doggone good work for us this year. So thanks to Derek on that. All right, Eric Lopez, let's dive into this. UCF football. The afterglow of the championship game, or of the Peach Bowl, rather, against Auburn. On the field, this is where it all started. On the field, Danny White looks into a camera, which I assume was toted around by Eric DeSalvo. I could be wrong. But looks into a camera and says, "National champs." And the ball starts rolling. UCF basically declares itself national champions by virtue of the fact that it beat Auburn, who beat both Georgia and Alabama, who played in the CFP National Championship game, with Alabama winning in thrilling fashion in overtime over Georgia 26-23. Granted, Auburn split with Georgia, but, why mess up a good story? The T-shirts are printed. I was there at the celebration at Disney. Disney was very careful to say undefeated UCF Knights.
Mm-hmm. Why? Why would they do that, Jeffrey?
That would be because it's Disney and they also own ESPN and they don't want to step on their own programming block.
We'll get to that. Because I think that's a very
national championship celebration in downtown Orlando on Church Street, which was well attended. But still, to that point, Eric Lopez. The detractors such as Paul Feinbaum essentially did have ammunition that UCF was essentially declaring itself national champions without any outside validation. Then came yesterday.
Oh, boy.
The computer polls that several of them are formerly from the BCS. They are listed in page 108 of the NCAA record book as what are
you realize you just said page 108, not page 1 or 2. It's 108. But okay.
It doesn't matter. It's in the record book. You can't take it away. This is what they are. All right? They are listed as major selectors for the national championship. There are a number of them right now. The consensus national championship is, according to the NCAA, decided by 4 selectors: the Associated Press, the Football Writers Association of America, USA Today, Amway, which does the coaches poll. Formerly UPI used to do it, and the National Football Foundation. The National Football Foundation and the Football Writers have merged. Okay, so those are your consensus national champions. But the other computer polls, other human polls, other historian groups are recognized by the NCAA as national championship, FBS, national championship major selectors. And so if one of these selectors at the end of the season says, you're number 1, you can claim that national championship. This has been done before by several programs, notably Alabama, which claims the national championship from 1973 and 1941 under what some would call dubious circumstances, but still they count those years as national champions. Let's see, who else? 1966, Alabama claimed a retroactive championship in a couple of computer polls. Let's see, who else as I go through? Oh, LSU, that's right, 1962. Oklahoma, 1957. Tennessee and Iowa claiming, and Georgia Tech, by the way, 3 different schools in 1956. Oklahoma in 1953. I'm going back in time here. Kentucky in 1950. Oklahoma A&M, which is now known as Oklahoma State, in 1945. And they had the audacity to hang a banner in their stadium saying national champions, 1945. So, lo and behold, wouldn't you know it, that the Colley Matrix, a computer poll done by Dr. Wes Colley, who's an astrophysicist based in Huntsville, Alabama, of all places, came out with his final rankings for 2017 last night, and he had UCF as the number 1 team in the country, which means that UCF can officially claim an NCAA-sanctioned FBS national championship.
Man, you know, when you're a kid, when I was a kid and I dreamed of a national championship, I always thought Colley Matrix was the one that I was dreaming about, like everybody else.
Colley Matrix.
Whatever.
Matrix.
Whatever.
Carry on.
So do we get a trophy?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. I don't know if Colley's actually come up with a trophy. Maybe.
Why not?
Why not? I don't know.
Yeah, I'll say this. First of all, he's
an astrophysicist. He doesn't make a lot of money.
Well, I mean, who better to judge college football than an astro what?
That's my point. I mean, wouldn't you want astrophysicists judging everything? I'm being serious.
Absolutely.
These are the smartest people in the world.
By the way, and I looked at his rankings. I laughed because he's got Wisconsin ahead of Ohio State in the rankings, even though Ohio State beat Wisconsin on the field, which is kind of UCF's argument that they beat Auburn on the field.
Not our problem.
Well, wait a minute. I thought the whole point was that, let's settle this on the field, that we didn't. Yeah. So now we're deciding this by math.
That is UCF's point. This is why I think this is absolutely 100% brilliant. Number one, you're calling out those other schools in the, quote, Power 5, end quote, who do this all the time. Okay?
Does that make it right?
Yes, it does. As far as I'm concerned, if they get to do it, we get to do it.
So true. Wow. Okay.
Yep, they get to do it,
So, back in the 40s, hey, just because things were done 50 years ago, hey, it's okay to do it now. That's basically the message. See, I think what we have learned here in the last week. Look, UCF, we can claim whatever you want. We can claim and you broke it down very well. But here's what I've learned in the last week. Nobody wants to fix the system. Everybody just wants to troll people.
No. I disagree with that.
Who wants to fix it? Why?
UCF and the group of 5 schools do want to fix the system. The problem is they can't.
Oh, why is that?
Because let's say hypothetically, let's take this to its logical conclusion, as UCF did, by the way. They're taking this to its logical conclusion. Taking your point that you've made many times eloquently to its logical conclusion that we don't have a playoff.
Correct.
They call it a playoff. We don't have a playoff. It's a 14 invitation.
Which by the way, the group of 5, everyone agreed on a contract, and they're getting paid for it.
But let's not forget, though, that they agreed to it on the condition that they believed that their best team would have a shot to get in if they played well, right? Well, that's what UCF did. They are the first. The UCF. This is a true fact. UCF is the first undefeated FBS team in the playoff era since 2014.
Okay.
First undefeated team.
Are they the first undefeated? Are they the first undefeated team not to get a shot to play for the national title?
No, they're not.
Okay.
But
because
if the
there's a lot of them, and by the way, some of them have been Power 5 schools too that have not gotten a chance.
Well, Auburn was one of them, 2004. Correct. No question about it. I'm not arguing about that, but that was in a previous era. This is in the playoff era, right? This was supposed to solve the problem. This is what ESPN and the group of and the Power 5 conferences told us. No problem. You have access now. Guess what? You don't. And if you don't believe me, listen to this quote from Bob Bowlesby, commissioner of the Big 12.
The conference that many people in UCF want to be in, right? Correct?
Speaking to, I don't know anymore about after this. Speaking to Heather Dinnick of ESPN, this is a quote. He said that UCF's playoff exclusion from the playoff is, quote, fair because playing in the American Athletic is not the same as playing in the Big 10 or the SEC or the Big 12. It's just not. They have some big games, but they don't have an Iowa State who can beat a second-ranked Oklahoma. The depth of those leagues and the quality at the top, getting ready for one game against Auburn, that's a lot different than playing Auburn every week. TCU. If TCU and UCF played 10 times, says Bob Bowlesby, I defy anybody to convince me that UCF would win the majority of the games. Of course, I've only been looking at it for 35 years, end quote. That's Bob Bowlesby. Now, setting aside whether or not you think he's correct, let's set that aside for the moment. That is astonishing to me that he's basically saying the American Athletic Conference, they're a second-class citizen. This is a commissioner of another FBS league coming out and saying that on the record.
Right.
Now, if that doesn't prove our point, I don't know what does. All right? And so I say, good on you.
Do you think he's alone? You think he's alone on that?
No, I don't think he's alone on that. But here's the thing. Let me ask you this question. Why would you come out and say that?
Well, that's his opinion. Do you not want his opinion?
No. Why,
do you think he's a?
Does he realize the can of worms he's opening by coming out and saying that?
Oh, I think it's stupid. I think it's a stupid comment because, first of all, if you put UCF in the Big 12 and you give them the revenue and the resources that a lot of those Big 12 schools, they can more than compete. Look at TCU since they've joined the Big 12. See, one of my problems with this whole story is that all parties have been childish in this. Instead of acting like adults and having creative conversations, we've decided to just call each other names and well, you can't beat this guy, you can't beat that guy, well, we beat that guy, and let's just troll this person. And, it's just been childish. It's a lot like politics. And I'm going to tell you why it's a lot like politics and the politics that we're in today. I watched the Alabama-Georgia game, and the president came out to a mixed reaction. And I thought to myself, wow, what a sad commentary that the president of the United States can come out to a football stadium and get a mixed reaction, and quite frankly, not surprising, right? I mean, do you agree with that? Do you agree with that?
Not surprised. Fans are free to boo whoever they want to boo.
Correct. But why are we at this point? because we're divided. Because instead of trying to figure out ways to make the country better, we're just busy arguing with the other side and have their biasness, right? The Democrats have their biasness. The Republicans have their biasness. So everything they're going to do is from their own perspective. They have no interest in making the country better. They just want to make things that benefit their parties. And so as a result, we don't really get a lot accomplished, and we have people that disagree on things. Well, guess what? That's college football. That's the same problem we have in college football. Instead of people looking out for what's in the best interest of the whole sport, they're just interested in their best interest. Bob Bowlesby could care less about the sport. He cares more about what gets his pockets in the Big 12. That's why he made those comments. That's what a lot of.
Okay, so here's my question to you then.
Yeah,
why is it
correct.
not in UCF's best interest to do this, to call the system out for the sham that it is?
Who says they didn't? I mean, they have the right to do that. But I also understand people that if you have to take it, like if people are going to ridicule you, you're going to have to take it. And I think some people haven't been able to take that. And you do wonder.
If you're talking about trolls on the message board, that's one thing. But if you're talking about Danny White, that's another.
No. Look, I think Danny White. Look, I think the UCF perspective is, yes, they wanted to get their message across, and I think they got some marketing out of it, though. I mean, it is.
Boy, did they ever.
Okay, but let's acknowledge that that's a big part of this, right?
They hacked the news cycle for the entire week on ESPN leading up to this game. Paul Feinbaum had to talk about it every day on his show leading up to CFP championship game between two SEC teams.
That creates a problem in journalism today. That's that we just, instead of people looking up facts, they just kind of want to yell and call each other names and come up with a nice soundbite. I mean, that's the industry that we're in today. And the deal, the thing that you better be careful with if you're UCF, okay, is down the road having a backlash on this, because you're agitating people at a very high, powerful positions, basically. So what happens, Jeff, if there is realignment in the next decade and you get shut out because you agitated wrong people? What if, as I was told by people that work at other conferences this week, if one of your sports teams is very close to making the NCAA tournament, whether it be basketball or baseball, if it's close and you get bumped out because of politics, does that justify it?
What difference does it make if you're already if that's already happening now?
What are you talking? No, but whoa. It's not happening to your school, okay? Although you bring up a good point. Here's the other thing. Do you think the group of five is getting screwed only in football?
Oh, no, they're getting screwed everywhere else, too.
Oh, I agree. Ask Wichita State. Why did Wichita State change from the Missouri Valley to the American Conference?
Better chance for them to get into the tournament.
Well, and get seeded better. I mean, they were a 10 seed last year in basketball. And remember the year they were the 1 seed and they got put with Kentucky in the same bracket. My point is this: you're not going to win this battle. So yes, you get some PR. You could claim what you want. You've broken it down in details. That's great. But I just think you have to be careful of that line. There is a line at some point you have to say you don't want your season to become a punchline. And I don't think we're there yet. So I don't want to make it out that we're not. But I also think we have to understand that by doing this, you are going to get criticized, and you can't get offended if some people are offended by it.
Oh, I'm not offended by it.
Well, but I think other fans are. I think fans are, which is why I think fans are offended every time. Just because somebody calls you out, says, I don't agree with this, doesn't mean they're wrong. But I think it's okay. It's okay to have difference of opinions. And I think if we learn as a society, forget this subject, but as a society, to listen to other ideas and other perspectives, then we might actually get somewhere. But if we're just going to name call each other, and anytime somebody questions you, well, you're a hater, you are a hater, you don't know what you're talking about, on both sides. I'm not suggesting. I think UCF, I understand the other side. I think Paul Feinbaum was very idiotic in some of the statements he's made, and others as well, like the stupid comment about, well, join another conference and play tough. It doesn't work that way. So I'm saying on both parties, Jeff. I'm not saying that one siders were right or wrong or the other. I'm just saying that both parties, would you not agree? And I'm not talking about the UCF administration. I'm just talking about the argument that has been taking place on social media and all the trolling and all the, hey, all that stuff. Is that going to me, that's not healthy. That's not healthy at all. That's not productive to me.
Well, I mean, if you pay attention to that, I get it. But, I mean,
which a lot of people do.
I don't. I mean,
I think you and I are a lot smarter. Look, if people listen to this program going back to the fall, we warned you this was going to happen. We warned you that you were not going to get into the playoff. We explained why. I have been saying this since the 90s when I follow college football, that I think there should be an 18 playoff and you have to have automatic bids. And here's the thing. This is my other issue. Everybody's poking and ripping the committee, right? The committee. And yet I pointed this out on Monday night. The AP poll had UCF only ranked 2 spots higher than the committee. I think the coaches had like 3. Why didn't anybody go after them? Why? And by the way, their final polls, the AP had them at 6. The coaches had them at 7. The BCS, if they would have had the BCS formula, had UCF at number 9. There's no formula out there that would have put UCF in under any circumstances. So this is not just the committee's issue here. This is the whole sport. This is an issue that goes back to the 90s, 80s. You go back. You've mentioned all the flaws in the sport. I think everybody would agree with you. You've pointed it out in your article. There aren't stupid claims in the 40s and the 50s because everybody's selfish in that regard. Hell, I remember 1994, Penn State. Undefeated, didn't whiff the national title because they gave it to Nebraska because the sympathy for Tom Osborne because he never won one, which is an absolutely asinine reason to give a national title, but that's what happened in 1994. So my point is, yes, you're all absolutely right. The whole sport is screwed up. It's flawed. It's biased. And when you depend when you're depending on opinion, all right, because this whole sport is based on opinion. The reality is nobody really knows. Nobody knows if UCF can beat Alabama. You might think they can beat Alabama. Alabama people might think Alabama can beat UCF and can't compete. But we really don't know. But
we don't know.
Nobody knows. But yet that's how college football is decided, is based on opinion, which, by the way, nobody's technically wrong when you have an opinion. You may not agree with the opinion. Like, I know some people are mad because people have said, well, Auburn didn't care about the game with UCF. Well, let me ask you this. Did UCF care when they played Arkansas State last year?
Yeah,
what happened then? Remember? No, because here's the thing.
I guess Georgia didn't care when they played Alabama, huh?
Well, my whole thing, it's funny. Because we're upset because of the way the Big 12s and the SEC treat the American Conference. And yet, when UCF played Arkansas State, Jeff, what was the kind of the premise from the fan? Oh, we're playing a Sun Belt school. Don't we do the same thing to other conferences like Conference USA and the Sun Belt and the MAC? You guys are worthless. Why are we wasting our time playing? We all do the same thing. So no one's innocent in this, and no one, to me, that's the problem that I have with this story, is that really at the end of the day, everybody's just going to yell at each other. Everybody will just put out their national championship shirts. I think there's a percentage of UCF fans that are just as happy with this result. They don't want, cool, we're national champions. That's great. But nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to get fixed because we're all going to act like 12-year-olds and we have to have name calling. And so, unfortunately, the sport's not going to get fixed. And I think that, to me, is the disappointing thing, is that's what should be focused on, not, hey, who's claiming national titles? Hey, who's doing this? The focus should be making the sport better. But I don't think that's the what's going on. No.
I'm going to disagree with you slightly. I don't think the system's going to get changed at least for another 7 years, whenever the contract
not until the next TV contract. Correct.
2025, I think, is when it's due to come.
Correct.
What I do think, though, is it pulled back the curtain on what I believe was an established consensus that the Power 5 conferences wanted to have out there in the public consciousness, that actually, no, this really is legit now. The BCS is the past. It wasn't. The college football playoff is a fully legit system, and I love the fact that it's our alma mater, UCF, that threw a wrench into the system and said, "Hey guys, the emperor has no clothes still." Now, when people realize that's going to be the impetus for action when contract time does come around. Is it going to change tomorrow?
I disagree with.
Of course not.
I disagree, by the way. That's not what's going to change it. What's going to change it is when TV wants more playoff games. That's what it's going to change. When money gets involved and says, hey, we want 8 teams instead of 4 because we want the extra game and we want more money. Okay, that's when it's going to change.
Right, but
it's not going to change.
Didn't this just jump the demand for that?
No, because
I disagree. Because we're hearing a lot of stuff now about you got to expand the playoff, you got to expand the playoff, you got to expand the playoff. More than we've heard in the last 4 years.
No, you heard it. You've heard it before. You've heard it every time a team gets left out. You heard it last year when Penn State got left out when they won the Big Ten and they put Ohio State in.
Right.
You heard it on selection day.
We've heard it before,
Correct.
But now it's reaching a fever pitch. And that's the key, because we didn't have a test case before. Now we do. It's what you could make previously arguments about why Penn State shouldn't have been in. Well, they lost a game. I forget what Penn State's record was before, because obviously they weren't.
They had 2
undefeated.
losses. They had two losses. Lost to Michigan and Pittsburgh,
and that's why make that argument. But we didn't have an undefeated, basically Cinderella team.
But
that you could point to and say, we want to see how that team would stack up against the big boys, and we're not going to. Because
Western Michigan, hold on a second. It's not true, though. Western Michigan was undefeated going into that selection, and they didn't even sniff it. We forget it because they lost their bowl game to Wisconsin. Western Michigan was in the same mix, all right? Houston beat Florida State on the field, all right, at the Peach Bowl. They had 1 loss, and that 1 loss was they had their backup quarterback. Now,
but none of those were playoff games.
Correct. But I think, yes, the fact that UCF finished undefeated and beat Auburn, let's be honest. A lot of this is because a lot of people don't like Alabama. A lot of people don't like Alabama. They don't like Nick Saban.
Oh, of course.
Let me ask you, if Clemson's playing Oklahoma, do you think it'd be as loud? Because I don't.
I just think people love trolling Alabama.
I agree. No, I agree. I think a lot of this has to do with the 2 things. It was Alabama, and first of all, it was 2 SEC teams, and people just get, flip out.
Now that is also a big factor because remember we had this, this discussion before. Was it 6 years ago when Alabama and LSU played?
LSU, correct?
Yeah.
When Alabama got the benefit of the doubt over Oklahoma State, even though Alabama didn't win their division because they lost to LSU during the season, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And that was a 2-team deal. A lot of this is because of the SEC envy, and there is SEC envy. There's no question. And Alabama envy. If Alabama was not in the mix, I don't think the argument would be as loud. But because it was Alabama and people have a problem with Alabama and people have a problem with teams that win all the time, it got taken to the next level. And I'm fine with that. That's okay. I don't have a problem. I just think the conversations need to be civil, and we need to look at it from all different angles. And I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to listen to people. I think sometimes we just don't listen to them, and we just, you're screwed, you're biased, you're crap. There are points that can be made for both parties. That doesn't mean that just because somebody questions certain things that you could do better. I don't think it's the end of the world. And I think if we can get to that point, I think we'd be better off. But I think, yes, I think a part of this was the Alabama thing and everybody, the whole Auburn thing. But ask people that follow the sport very closely. I'm sorry, but the SEC is better than the American Conference. I mean, it just is. There is tougher places to play. So I understand that argument. But I also think it's a little nonsense. I have also said this for the last 25 years, and in particular in the last decade, just because you play in the best conference doesn't mean you're the best team. And that's been my other counter argument to that.
My addendum to that argument would be, yes, the SEC top to bottom is better than the American. Right. But let's not pretend that the gap between the SEC and the American is as big as people think, because it's not.
Right. Agree. But you know this. Anybody that's followed college football, and you have followed this like I have for a long time, this is nothing new. It's all perception. It's all, the sport is built, the college football out of any sport is heavily dependent on brands and tradition. So to people to act shocked that Alabamas of the world are going to get the benefit of the doubt shouldn't be. This has always happened since the dawn of days. I mean, this has always happened. It just is what it is. I just don't believe you just have, like I said, I think UCF has made their point. I agree. But I think you also have to be careful in going to the point where now people don't take you the argument seriously. It kind of reminds me of the NFL with the controversy with the players and taking the knee, right, for the national anthem. Well, what was the message? Why did you take a knee? There was obviously a message. And one of the problems that happened was the message got lost. The reasoning they were taking the knee got lost in the translation because all people focused was, oh, well, that player's taking a knee during the national anthem. How un-American, including the president, by the way. He made a bigger deal out of it. But the message got lost. There was a message. There was a reason why they were doing it, but that got lost. I don't want the message to get lost, Jeff. That's my biggest concern. Don't lose the message. The message is we had a heck of a football team on the field that did this and did this. That's what the focus should be on, not on the antics itself. Does that make sense?
I see what you're saying, but at the same time, we've heard that argument, that sort of throttled back argument, year in and year out. And I think UCF is now turning it up to 11 and saying, look, you will start taking us seriously because we take ourselves seriously with this. And that's the other thing why going back to the Colley Matrix poll, why that's so important is because to me, it's one thing if you just stand out there and declare yourself national champions because of the transitive property, right? We beat the team that beat these two teams that played for the championship, therefore we're better than they are. While logically sound, it doesn't work that way. However, when you can point to something that says, according to the rules, technicality or not, according to the rules, we can claim a national championship, I say go for it. Especially when you have precedent set by other schools that have no problem doing the same thing.
But I don't think
that are now calling you out for it. Well, like I said earlier, the emperor has no clothes.
I don't think just because if UCF would have been ranked 2 or 3 in the Colley Matrix, I don't think any less of them as far as their argument though. Like I don't think that just because they're number 1, their argument is justified. I think the argument is one way or the other, regardless of that ranking. And they obviously feel that they should have gotten the opportunity. And I agree. But I also think Ohio State should get opportunity. And I think USC should get the opportunity because I don't think winning a conference championship should be devalued either. And that's the problem I have. One of the bigger issues with the system is I don't have a problem with Alabama being in the system, in the playoff, because they are one of the best teams in the country. But why should it be at the expense of a Big Ten champion or a Pac-12 champion? Why do we get to these stupid little arguments? Well, this conference is not that good or this conference is not that good. Just let the conference champions play. You have an 18 playoff and you settle it on the field that way. It's always mind-boggling to me. And the hypocrisy, by the way, of the sport and all these higher-ups, well, we want to keep it at 4 because the value of the regular season, so it's bull crap. That's the biggest bunch of crap that's gone back to the 80s. The regular season is the most overrated thing they've always said. The regular season every game doesn't mean the same. There's like about 100 schools that their games don't mean nothing. You could go 13-0, you got no shot. Alabama this year proved it in the 14 playoff. They could have. I knew going into that Auburn game they could lose to that game, and they were probably going to get into the playoff anyway because they were ranked number 1 for most of the year, and that's the belief is that Alabama has the best players, and maybe they did. And they certainly, to their credit, beat Clemson and Georgia, which is not an easy thing to do, is to go back to back and beat, Clemson and Georgia. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of flaws and there's a lot of, miscalculations in the argument. Look, I don't have a problem with UCF claiming national titles and celebrating it and making their point. I don't think that's fine. But let's not lose the message here. Let's not get carried away here because you can claim that, but you also have to understand that, let me ask you this. If we did a poll, you think every UCF fan truly believes in your heart of hearts you're national champions today?
Am I dosing them with sodium pentothal? Before I ask them that question?
No, I mean, do you feel like the national champion?
Yeah.
What? Okay. Well, if you do, great.
Because UCF won every game. They did what they were supposed to do. And if that's what you need to do in order to claim that, yeah. Hang that banner. Hang that banner, baby. Go ahead. Hang it up.
If UCF would have lost the game during the season, why wouldn't they still have a shot? Why shouldn't they still get consideration?
No, because you lost. You had just as many losses as everybody else.
So wait a minute. So Alabama can lose a game, but UCF can't? Isn't that a flaw in the system as well? Why? What's the difference?
Certainly it's a flaw in the system. Tell that to Ohio State.
See, because my argument, that's the other argument I've been annoyed with. Well, they went undefeated. They should be. I don't think just because you're undefeated, you should be in. If if a team goes 12-0 but played as a bunch of FCS schools, I don't think they should be in the playoff.
You mean like Alabama?
If you play half this, Alabama played one FCS team?
They had. I'm going to check their schedule.
They didn't play five. They didn't play 5-6.
Let's see their schedule here.
Played Mercer. I know that.
Oh yeah, it's powerful powerhouse Mercer. Let's see. They also played. Okay, so they did play Mercer. They played Fresno, Colorado State at home. Okay, fair.
Yeah. Look, everybody wants to knock the Alabama schedule. They played Florida State to open the year. Florida State was a top 5 preseason team in the country.
Knocked the quarterback out in the first half,
and that ended FSU's season. And that's the tricky thing about this kind of stuff. Some people want to knock them because, Florida State's not any good. Well, we don't know. They got hurt. They played Florida State at the healthiest, and that's a hard thing to judge. How do you play? These certain teams are, when do you play them? The time of year and things like that. It's hard. I mean, it's a hard thing to based on. That's again why I am a very heavy dependent on. You go with bids. You have to have some sort of criteria. Every sport has criteria. The NFL has criteria. The NBA. You have to have criteria. If you want to end biasness, if you want to get rid of all that, that's how you do it. Any other, any other ideas you're going to come up with will not get rid of biasness or, being very anti this or very, pro that. It's never going to end. It's not going to end it. No matter how loud you scream and yell.
It will look at – I tell you what it did change for me, and I guess we'll leave it here, is before I really thought that a 8-team playoff, 5 major conference champions, top-rated team from the group of 5, and 2 at-larges – would be satisfactory. I'm not so sure about that anymore.
What do you mean?
I am coming around to the idea that it should be a 16-team playoff. And all 10 conference champions get automatic bids.
I don't have a problem with that, but this sport works like a glacier. So,
right.
Remember,
it's the NCAA that does
which has
not
no backbone.
Award a national championship.
Because they have no backbone.
We say that now until and they say and one of the things, old saying from politics, I forget where, is change always seems impossible until one day it happens.
Well, it hasn't happened ever.
It hasn't happened yet, but if leadership changes in the NCAA, if things change with the NCAA with regard to labor laws, and there's massive reform at the NCAA level, which we could see one day. You never know. We could see the NCAA grow a pair and say, all right, we're going to host an FBS 16-team playoff, all the conference champions, 6 at-larges, determined by a committee, a selection committee, just like basketball, right?
Just like FCS, just like one double,
FCS, Division 2, Division 3, you name it, and it'll be, and this is how it's going to be. And if you don't like it, too bad. You don't get to call yourself a national champion.
That's fine, but I mean, this sport was didn't even have anything until like 2014, where they did this 4-team invite deal. So we move like glaciers. So like, can we just
possible?
Yeah, we just may not be around to see it.
It wasn't all that long ago that people were saying a 4-team playoff would never happen.
I agree. And I think what's going to happen is I think by next decade, and I'm talking 2025, something like that, I think you're going to go up to 8. And I think there's going to be movement in the conference. Here's the other thing you got to be concerned about when you make these type of proclaims national titles. You have to run the risk about this, that all the Power 5 schools says, okay, cool, congratulations. Why didn't you guys keep playing for that championship and we'll just play for our championship? And now you split. And now you're not even allowed to play these Power 5 schools. Because that some people have had that concern. Nick Saban's made that comment that he would prefer to just play Power 5 schools, which I think would be horrible. Because guess what? You're now not going to make any money out of those games. That's one of the reasons it's funny because some people are like, why isn't Mike Oresco spoken? Well, because the American Conference currently is in a TV negotiations. And that Peach Bowl that UCF got made a lot of money for the American Conference. You don't want to lose that paycheck. You don't want to lose it. And I think that's something that you also have to be careful of is, and I'm not talking about UCF, but I'm talking about if more schools try to go this route of proclaiming national titles and try to rub it into people's faces or whatever you want to claim, that the Power 5 will one day say, all right, you're right. You know what? You guys, we'll shake hands. Good luck. Have your playoff. We'll have our playoff. And we split up.
Boy, I think you're going to get into some antitrust territory when that starts happening.
I'm just saying. I mean, anything's possible. I mean, it's a wacky world, man. It's a wacky world. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see where this goes. I don't think the story has been fully written on the whole impact on it. But time will tell. I don't see anything changing within the next decade. And look, from a UCF perspective, can we agree on this at least? We'll agree on this. Because I think we'd agree, and I know some people got mad at this deal because some of the early preseason rankings for next season was released by some people, and UCF was ranked in the 15 to 20, 25 range. And people got upset about that because they return a lot of the core of the players. And I said, look, that's the norm. Especially losing Scott Frost and the coaching staff, people are going to drop them down just because of that, whether you like it or not. And people go, oh, you're a hater, you're mad. No, that's just the way it is. UCF's got to prove that they can win 10, 11, 12 games every year. That's what Boise State did. That's what TCU did. That's what Utah did.
Right.
But and then Utah and TCU ended up in power conferences.
Boise's still on the outside looking in.
Well, and what hurts Boise is the location and all that, and timing, obviously. But TCU and Utah, what got them into the Power 5 conferences was they were consistent winners, and the timing was right. And that's what you got to do. You just got to keep winning. Go win 10, 11, 12 games next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. And now guess what happens? Now you get the benefit of the doubt. The benefit of the doubt you didn't get this year, now all of a sudden you're getting it down the road. And I think that's what the program has to do. Are we going to talk about Dan Le Batard? Because I do want to defend Dan Le Batard.
Let's hit Dan Le Batard real quick because he declared UCF the Dan Le Batard Show national champion. And
yes, which I do have the shirt. I'm not joking. I have the shirt.
I got the shirt too,
and
I think it's great.
He wanted
somebody who likes to poke the bear and and poke it in justice.
Well, and I want to address that because he wanted to do the show from the campus at UCF, and I guess UCF said no. And there's some reason.
From what I heard, from Dan Le Batard listening to his show, that the athletic department was on board. Mm-hmm. The university administration was not.
I mean, I'm sure there's some behind the scenes things that people could figure out as time. Oh, well, this is why it didn't happen. I mean, there's probably a business, things like that. But I know some fans.
I heard it would upset the radio partner because UCF's radio partner is 740 The Game,
right? Which
is not an ESPN affiliate. Whereas Dan Le Batard obviously is on ESPN Radio. Local affiliate here is 580. And UCF did not want to, as an administration, from a business perspective, did not want to upset the apple cart with their current radio rights holder.
That could be true. I mean, that might be true. We've been in the radio industry for a long time. I could see that developing. But regardless of that, because I know some fans were like, Le Batard's just mocking us. He's mocking. That's not true. That's not true. Dale Le Batard has been defending UCF throughout the season, all year long. Talked about Shaquem Griffin and everything like that.
And so I think a couple times on the show, didn't
correct. And in fact, I have a clip for you because some people are like, some people got upset because I guess he gave the trophy to Lane Kiffin on Tuesday's episode. And I said, well, the reason he gave it to him is because UCF turned it down. What do you want him to do? Which, by the way, sets up a heck of a story. Can we make next year UCF is hosting FAU at what I now call Scott Frost Field? That's what I'm claiming. I'm claiming that after the best coach in the history of the football program. But hey, if we could claim national titles why can't I claim him as the best head coach of all time? I could do that too. But
you're not an NCAA sanctioned selector. That's why, Eric Lopez.
What do we have to do to be one? Can we do that? Can Black and Gold Banneret become an NCAA selector?
I was listening to the interview earlier today with Wes Colley. Our friend Mike Tuck was filling in for Mark Daniels. Today he had Wes Colley on the show, and I wanted Mike to ask him that. And what do you have to do to become an NCAA major selector? What did you have to do to get that badge, if you will, that merit badge, right? And he didn't ask the question. Doggone it! So one day I want to find that out.
Sounds like you're gonna have to get him. You're gonna have to get him. You're gonna have to get Colley.
Right. Anyway, Carrie, go ahead with what you're saying.
So I guess Lane Kiffin has the trophy. Well, FAU's playing UCF next year. I want that to be the Dan Le Batard Bowl. I want that trophy. I think if we beat FAU, we take that trophy. I want the trophy. I want that. But I'm going to defend Dan. I have a clip here from Tuesday because some people are like, well, that means he was off the UCF bandwagon. He was just going to mock us. There was some concern. People are like, well, we don't want him here because he might mock us. And no, he's a full UCF supporter. And I have an audio to claim that because he got into a big-time argument in Tuesday's episode with College Game Day host Reese Davis. So here's the clip.
With you, Stu, it's just Le Batard.
It's also a bogus national championship. UCF has his rightful acclaim. I'm not even kidding, Reese. I know that you're the college football face and voice, but I am saying that never before have we had such a clear doubt about whether we should have co-champions or not. Co-champions.
No, you're out of your mind. Never before. What about LSU and USC?
How many undefeated teams are there in the country right now, Reese? How many undefeated teams are there?
Wait, that's not what you said. You said never before have we had such a doubt that there should be co-national champions.
That's right.
You said, and you're wrong about that.
Tell me why I'm wrong.
2003, number one, because LSU and USC in 2003 would certainly be a debatable point, as would many others in the past. But here's the analogy that I would draw. Just because I think his name is Pedro Fullerman from the Phillies hit 364 this year as a late season call-up. He didn't win the batting title. He didn't have enough big league at-bats.
This is bull bleep. No. This is the regional champion. No, this is your SEC bias. We're in bed with the SEC network. This is your SEC
bias.
Out of your mind. This is what's happening here.
Your mind.
You're telling me how much better is Mississippi State than the University of South Florida? Tell me, because they're not. The teams in the SEC are not better than the South Florida team UCF beat.
So is that the measure that you're going to use to apply?
Should the measure be that you think the SEC is great?
Level teams are.
Phone issues, Dan.
Let me ask you this: do you think that going through the schedule in the American Conference, while it's a good league with good teams, is the same as going through the Big Ten, the Big 12, or the SEC or the ACC?
He does, Reese. Reese, I want to be clear. We're all with you.
Out of your mind.
No, we're all with you.
We're all with you, Reese.
He is out of his mind.
No,
yes,
the way that he frames it there, he's right. But I could come back just as easily and say to you that if Alabama had exactly Central Florida's resume, you would make them the national champion. I could say that, and you would, because of the reputation Alabama has.
Not if they played the American schedule, which is again a good league. And the reason I don't like these debates is because it sounds as if I'm bashing UCF. They had a great year, and they're capable of beating teams. Maybe they are capable of running through.
They should be co-champion.
We have a system. You can't just change
I
the
can.
system rules because you don't like it.
I think the system's bogus. I can.
I
already paid a fine.
Reed, stay strong, man.
You should declare them. You could get them a trophy.
I have a trophy.
They didn't accept
I have a trophy here for them that they won't accept. It's a trophy. Somebody send it to Reese Davis. I have a trophy. I've got 4,500 T-shirts declaring them national champions.
You just agreed to send it to Lane Kiffin. You can't send it to everyone.
I know. I'll send it to Reese too. Send a piece of it to Reese so he can eat it.
No one wants the trophy.
I know. I'm very ashamed of that. Reese, I'm sorry for my tone. I do love you, and thank you for playing along with our show.
There you go. I mean, look at the passion right there with Le Batard calling out Reese Davis, feeling that UCF should be in. And it was Reese that was the, quote, anti-UCF. He's more the Alabama guy, going back to our original point. Bob Bowlesby ain't the only one that thinks that way. Reese Davis doesn't believe UCF could compete with the Alabama schedule or the SEC and things like that. But Le Batard and Reese had an argument about that. But Le Batard's very consistent, and I've listened to him for many years. He's always been anti this system, to your point. So he was very pro-UCF. So I'm disappointed that they didn't allow Dan Le Batard to do his national radio show from campus or somewhere in Orlando, because I think that would have been great exposure for the university. I understand the business side of things, and I think maybe your point was probably accurate. Who knows? But I want to point out that Dan Le Batard is not mocking UCF, that he is very much on UCF's side. He does believe UCF's the best team. So I for those that think he was going to mock UCF is completely inaccurate.
One last point before we go to break. Some UCF fans pulled some money together and put up a billboard, which in Alabama, by the way, on McFarland Boulevard in Tuscaloosa. This billboard says, "Congratulations, Alabama. How about a home-and-home series with UCF? Created and paid for by UCF fans." Fair?
Well, when you say fair, as far as what?
Fair to call them out in their own hometown and ask them that.
Well, let me ask you this.
On the part of the fans. Mind you, it was fans that did this.
Right. I mean, the fans put the money. I mean, I guess it's fair to do whatever you want if you spend money, right? I guess.
It's your money. Do whatever the hell you want.
It's funny. That argument has been brought up. And there's two sides to this, right? I mean, yes, in a perfect world, you like to do a home and home. But that's not realistic. Ironically, by the way, Alabama will play in Orlando to open the season. They'll play
at the Citrus. UCF.
Yeah, they're going to play at the Citrus Bowl against Louisville. So the national champs will be in Orlando on opening weekend. So whatever that's.
Lopez, you got to come in with your wrestling guys and be like, "What's that? That's UCF's music."
I want to wear my Le Batard shirt.
God.
Oh my God, cash in.
Cash in that. It's UCF's
here's my
music.
Thing. Right. Just go boom, tackle. I think a home and home, whatever. My thing is this. Alabama, to their credit, every year plays a neutral game. They played Florida State in Atlanta this year, for example. They've played West Virginia in the past in Atlanta. They played Michigan in Arlington and Dallas recently. They played Wisconsin in Arlington. They played USC in Arlington. They're going to play Louisville and Orlando, as I mentioned. So I think it's a little unfair to say that Alabama is one of the few SEC teams that will go out and play people. They won't go on the road per se, but they also won't necessarily just, it's a one home game. They'll go to a neutral field. So my question to counter to that would be, what if Alabama said, hey, why don't we just play in a neutral field? I don't think we should take that down.
See, if I'm UCF, I'm taking that tomorrow.
Well, and that's my thing. My thing is this.
I'll play them in Honolulu. I don't care. Let's go.
I agree. And my thing is this, and I know this will not be a popular comment, but if a team says, because Florida State and Miami's of the world had to do this back in the day. Hey, come to us, play one game here, and then we want to play at a neutral field. I still think you take it.
Yeah. I
don't think it has to be a home and home, and I hope we don't get into has to be a home and home or else, because then you're going to have a hard time getting people to play you. It'd be great to do home and homes, but Alabama historically, as I mentioned, they play more neutral games, so you're going to have to be more adaptive to that idea.
See, that's the thing where I'm like, I'm not even – see, O'Leary used to do this, right? O'Leary was like, look, I'm going to play one at you. You're going to play one at me. I'm not going to do a 2-for-1 or any of that. And I actually disagreed with that. I love it when UCF is like, when UCF does what Boise actually has done, is we don't care where we're going to play you. We'll play you and we'll beat
Correct.
you.
Correct.
They went to, what was it? The one year they went to, didn't they beat Virginia Tech in Washington, D.C.?
Yes, in Landover. They beat them in Landover. They beat Georgia in Atlanta.
Yeah, they beat Georgia in Atlanta one year. I mean, that's, and I love Boise State for doing that, and I think UCF should do the same thing. Hey, Alabama, where you want to play? You want to play in downtown Birmingham? You want to play in the Citrus Bowl, or Camping World Stadium, whatever. You want to play? You want to play in Legion Field? Or do you want to play? You want to play in the Rose Bowl? Let's go.
I agree. No, I agree, and I hope that's the message. That's the thing we should do. Is that's the deal. You don't want to get like, well, we'll play at home and home, and if you don't play here, then we're not going to play. I mean, that's how you make a name. And here's the thing: as great as the Auburn win is in January, the impact was bigger if you beat an Auburn type team in September. If you beat them in September, your argument's much more valid. It's hard to do it in January.
Tech game, even though Georgia Tech didn't have a good year this year, that Georgia Tech game, losing that did hurt.
And UCF's gotten some bad luck in that. Like next year, for example, they're playing North Carolina and Pittsburgh, two teams that have been very good recently, but are both coming off bad years. So now all of a sudden it's kind of like, well, we tried, right? Well, that's our argument. We tried. We can't control how certain teams drop, right? Like that's the issue also. So it's not easy.
That game looked good when we scheduled it.
It did. So it's tough. That's why I don't believe in you got to schedule tougher. Well, some things just don't break that way.
Well, we did schedule tougher. What do you want from us? Schedule filled out 4 or 5 years in advance.
Well, here's the thing, too. I mean, not only you have North Carolina and Pittsburgh, but I mentioned FAU, which no joke. I think FAU is going to could be a top 25 team going into next season with Lane Kiffin. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, they're going to be really, really good. And that's going to be a heck of a game. So it's actually, I would say that next year's schedule is way tougher than this year's schedule. So I actually do think if UCF were to go undefeated next year, they'll get more benefit of the doubt. I don't know if they get into the playoffs still because of the system the way it is, but I do think they would be ranked higher based compared to this year. Plus, they would have done it for a second year in a row. And you hope that either Carolina or Pittsburgh, one of them bounces back next year and has a good year.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and we'll put a bow on that one for now.
Do we get a parade? The Colley Matrix parade? Can you present the trophy? I want you.
The parade. I was there at Disney.
Let's have another one. Let's have another one. I mean, let's have the Colley Matrix
celebration at the basketball game on Tuesday.
I want you to present the trophy. You wrote a heck of an article on Black and Gold. You were the first. I think you're the one that, you brought this to everybody's attention. Spectrum Sports put you on their show. Your article.
I gotta tip my cap to Despina Barton, who grabbed that tweet, which people are still favoriting and retweeting tonight.
That's what I'm saying.
24 hours later.
I think the fair thing is you should present them with the Colley Matrix #1 ranking national title. You deserve it. You're more qualified than the other people that gave away who presented the trophies at the parade in downtown or whatever. That's what I want you to declare it. Whoever I got to talk to, I will push for it. I want Jeff Sharon to present the Colley Matrix national championship.
We need to get this. We need to get Wes Colley. We need to get Wes Colley involved in this, and I don't know. Maybe Sam can get it. Can help us out with this too. I don't know.
Yes, somebody's got to know. Yeah, we got to make this out. We're gonna get them on. We're gonna try and get them on.
We're gonna take a quick break. Speaking of Sam and company, but when we get back, we'll hit basketball. And we'll tie up some loose ends elsewhere as well. Stick around. The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is back after this. The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is brought to you by the Unger Real Estate Group, powered by eXp Realty. Sam Unger and his team proudly serve Orange, Seminole, and Lake counties, specializing in buying, selling, and new construction. Sam is a proud UCF graduate, class of 2006, and he's such a dedicated Knight fan that right now, if you work with him as your realtor, he will donate a portion of his commission to the UCF Football Excellence Fund in your name. So if you're ready to buy a new home or sell your current home, upgrade or downsize, Sam and his team have you covered so you can find the right home at the right price in the right location. So give them a call right now at 407-790-9957. Again, that's 407-790-9957. Or visit on the web at WeSellOrlando.net. Again, that's WeSellOrlando.net. You can also reach them on Facebook at facebook.com/WeSellOrlando. Get in touch with the Unger Real Estate Group today and make finding your dream home a reality.
Hello, Night Nation. I'm Andrew Fegley.
And I'm Trey Strelko. Where are we? This isn't our usual spot.
It looks like we've landed in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of those guys.
You know, Nightline has UCF sports covered.
Week in and week out, we bring you interviews with newsmakers and in-depth analysis of UCF sports.
Subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Be sure to subscribe to Nightline on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at UCF_Nightline.
Trace, can we go back to the 1148 studios now and start working on our next all-new Nightline?
How do we get out of here? Go Knights!
Charge on.
Now back to you guys in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you. Follow us on Twitter at UCF_Banneret. And also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. We're on Google Play, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. That's where you can subscribe to this podcast. Leave us a rating. Let us know how we're doing. Send us some questions. You can hit us up at blackandgoldbanneret@gmail.com.
By the way, since we're talking national championships, we are the Black and Gold Banneret is the 2017 fantasy football champions as we destroyed Nightline. I just want to know, when do we get our trophy?
Yes. Listen, this is the most important. This is the most important championship question that we need to get settled right here.
Damn right.
So, Trace and Andrew, we're looking at you. I was remember we asked. They said, "Well, what are the stakes?" And I said, "Well, steak." So, listen, we will not accept. Steak burgers from what the heck's that place called?
Steak and Shake?
The one that's Steak and Shake. No, we're not doing that.
We love Steak and Shake, but nothing against that.
But, it's got to be, we're looking for honest-to-God steak here, okay? So the ball's in your court, boys. Let's get it together. All right. I'm probably going to get like a frozen steak mailed to me or something.
Although, Trace, we're rooting for you. He's right now in last place in his fantasy basketball challenge. He's the defending champion. He does this with like 5 of his friends.
Trace.
And he's in last place right now. I talked to him. He's not in a,
Needs to rally.
I know, big.
Let's go.
Got to get going, buddy. Got to go going. We're behind you on this. If you need any help,
play now, man. Conference play. Let's go.
Step it up, man. Let's go.
All right. Speaking of conference play, men's and women's basketball are elbow deep in it now. Earlier tonight, we're recording this on Wednesday, January 10th. UCF men's basketball fell at UConn at Gamble Pavilion, 62-53. Game was on CBS Sports Network. It's UCF's second conference loss of the season. They dropped to 3-2 in the league, 12-5 overall. In a game that was pretty tight all the way through. Knights were down 9 at the half, but it never really felt like they were out of it. A little bit of a chippy ball game too. 3 Knights in double figures. Cesar De Jesus had 13, 4 assists and 5 boards. Terrell Allen had 12 points and 4 rebounds. Taco Fall 11 points, 5 boards, and was 5 of 7 from the field. However, UCF couldn't get the shooting going. 5 of 21 from beyond the arc, just 19 of 52 from the field. Despite a pretty good performance at the line, 10 out of 12. UCF did shoot in the first half was just bad. 9 of 27 from the field, 1 of 9 from three-point range. On the other side for UConn, 18 points from Christian Vital. And 13 each from Jalen Adams, who crossed the 1,000 point barrier in this game, and Terry Larrier. Let's give some credit to the UCF defense, who also held UConn to just 19 field goals themselves, but they did hit 4 threes for the game. and they were 20 of 21 at the line. Note the free throw difference. UCF with 12 free throw attempts to UConn's 21. Rebounds were also in favor of UConn, 31 to 29, and it was chippy. There was a hard foul during the middle of the game that led to a little bit of a scuffle. I think it was I forget who it was. I think it was Dayon Griffin. Actually, it looked like he got mostly ball when he was chasing down a block. That ended up in a scuffle, and then there was a scuffle after the game. I think it was Griffin again, and I'll have to go back and look. And I think it was may have been Jalen Adams involved in it. I didn't see. Did you see who it was?
I didn't. I think Vidal was involved in that too.
Vidal was involved in it. Yeah, but Brian Murphy and you both brought this up at basically the same time on Twitter that the conflict is back.
See, it turns out we just had the wrong sport for the trophy.
Sport, exactly.
Yeah, that's all. I want that whoever has that trophy, bring it out on January 31st when two basketball teams play.
Let's go pick it off the bench in Hartford. I bet you it's in a closet somewhere, like at Rentschler Field. It's got to be, right?
Oh, well, let's get it.
I contacted UConn, and I asked the rest of the idea. I said, "Where is the trophy?" He says, "We don't know." I'm not sure I believe that.
It's a good question. Yeah, I got chippy there. First of all, you mentioned the foul. That was ridiculous. Steve Lapis, who called the game, did a great job of analyzing that. Griffin was going all ball.
He did make a play for the ball. That was clear.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
He was not intentionally trying to.
No, and the UConn
player was trying to dunk the ball and
slow down.
Yeah.
That's what happened, and so you have a physical contact, and this happens in the NBA too. The sports, the way they're calling games has become softer and wussifying it. Oh my God, he pushed him, and all this. It's a flagrant foul. It's ridiculous, and that was huge because I thought
it's a little different in the regular season. But go ahead.
I think it's absurd. That should not have been a flagrant one. That was a hard foul. There's nothing wrong with it, and it was ridiculous. And I thought that helped Connecticut kind of get the momentum late in that first half to build it up to 9. The bottom line is the big question to me is going to be, when does B.J. Taylor return?
Right.
He was not. Nobody knows. Coach Dawkins keeps saying he's day to day. They mentioned on the telecast.
We all.
Right. No, and this is the thing. And my theory was, because I was at the Temple game while you were at Disney at the parade, and Murph was in Jacksonville, by the way, for the NFL playoff, because that's what we do here. We cover everybody. I felt like when I found out he wasn't going to play the Temple game, I had a feeling he wasn't going to play this UConn game, because if you look at the schedule, they don't play again until that Cincinnati game on Tuesday. So basically he's got another full week to be ready. And I think the Cincinnati game is huge. Cincinnati, I think, is the second best team in the conference behind Wichita State. They're tough, but
home game.
Correct. I think B.J. Taylor, if this team has any chance to make the NCAA tournament, they're going to need B.J. Taylor. And the question, if he doesn't come back for Cincinnati, let's say, now the question becomes, well, does he come back? What's going on? It'll be interesting if he comes back. And when does he come back? Because Lapis brought it up in the broadcast. It's going to take some time to gel once he gets back. So they need to get him back soon, because this defense is legit. Coming into this UConn game, they were 3rd in the country in scoring against, 6th in the country in field goal percentage against. Defense is there, and the defense will give them a chance to win every game. But as we saw, their offense is very tough right now. They don't have consistent players. A lot of it is youth. The shooting's erratic. BJ's a guy that can clean up a lot of that. BJ's a type of guy that can make a lot of guys get easier shots.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, if they don't get BJ Taylor back, they're not going to make the NCAA tournament. Their only shot to go deep in the conference and compete in the conference at a high level is they get BJ back sooner than later. Whether that, when does that happen? I don't know. But that's, to me, the deal. And unfortunately, that's a tough loss at UConn. They don't play well historically at UConn. They're going to have to find ways to steal some games on the road. Now, they won at East Carolina, which is fine. They lost at SMU, which everybody loses to at SMU. Connecticut's a tough loss. They're going to have to steal some road games, like, for example, at Memphis. Memphis is down this year. You got to try and win there, but the problem is, historically, UCF plays awful in that building because it's an NBA arena and teams aren't used to shooting in the rims there. We've been told that by Taylor Young and among others who have been on the show. So this team is going to have to win some of these road games and protect the home turf if they want to be an NCAA tournament team. That's the bottom line. That's what we're judging it on. If you're judging on NCAA, that they're going to have to win some road games, tough places like a Memphis or wherever, if they want to be an NCAA tournament team, and they're going to have to get BJ Taylor. So those are the two takeaways I would take following the UConn game.
I think they're disappointed because I think that they felt like they had a shot to win for the first time at UConn tonight, because UConn is off to a rough start. They're 9-7 overall, although they're 2-2 in the league. Still, it's a team that's 8-1 at home. I'm looking at the standings right now. UCF is alone in 5th place in the American at 3-2, behind Cincinnati and Wichita are actually tied at the top at 3-0. Tulsa's 3-1. Houston's 2-1. Then you have us, and then 4 teams behind UCF: SMU, Tulane, Memphis, and UConn at 2-2 apiece. But this, I think, is interesting. You have, except for the bottom 3 teams, which are ECU, Temple, and USF, every team in the American is either undefeated at home or has only 1 loss at home, and that includes UCF. You have SMU is 11-0 at home, but they're 0-3 away. Credit to Wichita State; they're off to a 13-2 start, and Cincinnati also 14-2, and they've won 7 in a row. Cincinnati's really hot right now, but yeah, I think you're right. I think that perhaps Johnny Dawkins thought that you could steal one tonight against the UConn team that's a little bit down, but it didn't work out that way. And now you're 3-2, but at least you're going to get BJ back. I think it certainly would have been nice if you come at get that first win at UConn, and then you're 4-1 in the league, and then 13-4 as it stands right now. UCF is 3-2 in the league, 12-5. So, but again, their next game coming up, like you mentioned, Eric, home against Cincinnati. That's Tuesday, January 16th, and that will be televised on CBS Sports Network. And then turn right back around. You got Saturday at USF for a War on I-4 game. Yeah, this is going to be this is going to be an interesting stretch, and boy, you're throwing BJ Taylor to the wolves right away if you're bringing him back for this Cincinnati game. So that's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. Women's basketball right now, 11-6, 3-1 in the conference. They currently stand in 4th place in the. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's wrong. They are currently, 4th. Okay, sorry, that they are in 4th place in the American at 3-1, tied with USF and Houston for 2nd place in the league. Tiebreakers moved UCF down to that 4th spot. UConn obviously is, UConn, 4-0, 14-0, and they defeated UCF in the night's most recent game. 80-44 was the final in Stores. UConn does UConn things, but let's give credit to Coach Abe's squad that started off the conference season 3-0. 6-point win at home against Wichita State last Saturday to get 59-53 to get to 3-0 in the league heading into that UConn game. And again, I know we've said this last year, and no coach is going to ever admit this, at least not out loud. But in the American, you just kind of have to just throw UConn out, right? It's like you look at the standings, you post the standings, you put them up at the top, right? And then you just take the eraser, and then you just erase them out of there, and just worry about everybody else because UConn is UConn, right? You're not going to win the game. If you do, great. I mean, congratulations, right? But let's just throw that game out for now. And UCF's next game is at USF. What what's going to become a very big matchup. It will be televised on ESPNU. It's noon on Sunday, January 14th, this coming Sunday. The USF is at it again this year. They are 13-4 overall, 3-1 in the league. We're gonna separate the women from the girls, so to speak, in this ball game coming up against USF. So I'm actually impressed with the way that Coach Abe's team has started out, and now we're going to see what really happens. How do you come off that loss to UConn with another road game in a tough environment?
Well, it's USF. I mean, them very well. That's the big rivalry. I mean, yeah, you're right. The UConn game you kind of throw out. I mean, it reminds me when UCF
you get UConn one more time at home, by the way, on February 7th. So you may as well throw that one out too.
So here's a question to you.
Okay.
I mean, we'll get to that. Is that a game from a casual fan, and I'm sure we'll get into that the week of that game? Is that a game that draws you to go?
It does for me, because I am curious to see how UCF stacks up in the second matchup against UConn. I mean, UConn is they're like the Beatles, right? Even if you don't like rock and roll, if you ever had the chance to see the Beatles in person, like in the 60s when they were touring, you just went and you saw them. If they came to your town, it was an event. I'm always interested to see them. I mean, I was there. I actually did PA for the game last year. Between UCF and UConn, I think it was New Year's Day or maybe the day after.
Sounds about, yeah, it's like a holiday.
It's right around there. But and it was as a fan of basketball, it was a treat to watch UConn in person, because everything they did was so crisp. It's like, put the tape in. This is how basketball as a sport, no matter if women, men, aliens, I don't care.
So you're going to go back.
Basketball should be played. I would like to go back. I don't know if I'll get the chance to go to that game, but right. I would love to. If I'm a UCF fan, I'm going to see that. I want to see that. That's an event. I want to see not just how UCF stacks up, but I just want to see what I want to see UConn in person, because it's a truly great program right now. I mean, it's like watching. I always imagine what it must have been like watching UCLA in the 60s with John Wooden, right?
Wow.
What they're doing is on a
level
we'll get into
that. We'll get to that more in depth, I guess, when the week of that game. I was just kind of curious about that, because that'll be an interesting question because of the way the games turn out. But the one thing is they played well. They held UConn to their fewest points in the first half of the season. So the defense is there. The USF game's big. I think USF...
Put that one up on the wall.
Right. No, I mean, it's true, though. You're right. It's like when the men's team was in Conference USA during Memphis's heyday when John Calipari's there. The joke was it's not Conference USA, it's Calipari USA. So, I remember when UCF in 2007 finished second in the regular season, I'm like, we should just go ahead and get a title for that. Finishing second should get a reward, a trophy for that. And so you're right. I agree with you the same way on the women's side. I think USF, certainly on paper, many believe is the second best team. They got destroyed by UConn as well. So I'm curious to see how that matchup goes. UCF knocked them off last year. This was a tough 2-game stretch for them. So I'm very interested to see how they match up. I saw them. Obviously, I worked the game this past weekend when they beat Wichita State, excuse me. And Z Saunders, who you've seen up close, getting better and better by the game. Coach, obviously very big fan, leader. I think she's kind of replaced some of the, intangibles and some of the production that Lewis did last season.
Yeah.
So that's been huge. The defense is good. They got they're rebounding the ball well, even though they've lost some size.
They've lost a lot of size this year.
Correct.
Correct. Out for the year. Fifi and Dora's out. Yeah, I mean that's your starting center and your starting power forward. So they really are patching it together up front.
Well, both. I mean, her and Dawkins have done that, which I think has kind of been underplayed a little bit. That they've both have been put in positions. By the way, I mean the women's team. I haven't checked. I'm going to check actually right now. Have put themselves in position where I know it's early and people would say that, but. They've put themselves in a position where if they win some meaningful games here down the stretch here, they can get themselves into the NCAA tournament. And I don't know, that's where the women's team is. They were 51 RPI prior to the UConn game. Last week, I should say. I haven't checked what this week's RPI is for the women's team, and I would imagine it would be helped. When you play UConn, it's going to get helped, obviously.
Yeah.
But, that's one of the factors. This team has a shot if they can keep improving. And she told me after the game is just be focused for every game. Everybody can get up for the UConn games of the world and the USFs, but you also got to get up for every other game. And I think that's going to be the key for this team's success the rest of the year, is just staying on that consistent level that got them to the 3-0 start. And if they do that, I think things will take care of itself. Because from a women's side, I think this is a 3-bid league probably. It has a very good chance of being that. So I think there's great opportunities for this team. I'll be curious to see how they shape up against the USF, who many believe is the second best team. We'll see. I'm very interested to see how they match up. I was right. UCF RPI is 51. That was as of games through January 9th. They were 51, which is not bad. And I would assume, playing UConn and USF.
Game, yeah.
UConn number 1 RPI. Real shock there. Houston.
No way.
Yeah, seriously. Houston 28 RPI. USF 29 RPI. UCF 51. Those are, and then there's a big drop off like Tulane's 108. So you look at NCAA possibilities from the conference. You have UConn, USF, Houston, UCF all battling to get in there. With UConn, obviously, will get in. But that's why this USF game's big, because I think the women's team is going to need that signature win on the resume that the committee can look at in March and say, yep, they deserve to get in. And this would be one of those opportunities, but it won't be easy.
Yeah. I do think that this USF game is going to turn out to be a big barometer for how we're going to see, if UCF is able to get, an at-large bid. It does feel right now like like you said, if it's a 3-bid league, UCF right now would be on the, outside looking in, given how good Houston is. So these road games against the likes of Houston, USF, they are so huge for the program. Last year, we saw what UCF could do. They beat USF in Tampa for the first time in program history, and did so with defense in a game that, I had actually done a USF game, I think it was the week before, and their offense looked like it was clicking on all cylinders, and UCF kind of gummed up the works on them. So I think that's going to be a battle down there in Tampa, definitely worth watching. It will be Sunday at noon on ESPNU. So it's a feature spot there on ESPNU for UCF and USF in the war on I-4. So, all right, let's wrap things up here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Lopez, what do you have coming up this week?
Now, we've been watching a lot of football, and we haven't even touched on that. Jaguars, Blake Bortles, A.J. Bouye. Brian Murphy covered the game for the Banneret.
Press conference. Did you see? They were both out in the national championship thing.
That's right. That's
awesome.
On blackandgoldbanneret.com right now. Murphy wrote a story about it, played the video clip and the quotes from Blake Bortles. And A.J. Bouye, he talked to A.J. We're the only UCF outlet at the stadium covering that game.
Yeah.
That's what we do. And Murph did a great job there. But I bring him up because Blake Bortles has become a punching bag.
It's really, it's getting to the point where it's like enough.
Well,
and listen, he did not have a good game.
Yeah,
in the playoff game. Let's just get that out of the way up front. He did not play well. First playoff game, I get it. I get it. And they're going to be massive underdogs this weekend, but it's now cliche, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. I like we had a Titans player this week said that if they can turn Tom Brady into Blake Bortles and turn the ball over, I'm like, wow. I mean,
golly.
He's it's tough. I mean, they've crushed him. I mean, as much as I defended Le Batard earlier, he has been crushing Blake Bortles. Chris Sims, your boy, who's the kid of Phil Sims, just crushes him, calls him the 70th best quarterback in the NFL. It's tough, man. I mean, they're at Pittsburgh. They beat them earlier in the regular season, but to me, it's a signature story because unfortunately, Jeff, I don't know if Blake's going to be able to stay there in Jacksonville. I mean, he's got to play better for them to beat Pittsburgh, and if he doesn't, I just think they're going to get him out of there, and they're going to try get get either your boy Eli Manning or go get somebody else.
There was an article on the Ringer, Bill Simmons' site, that talked a lot about Blake Bortles and how he really doesn't let any of the criticism get to him. Current teammates, former teammates, have just said, he just doesn't. It just rolls right off him. He has the world's shortest memory, and they made a point in the article that playing for George O'Leary for 3 years will do that for you, because you got to have a short memory to play for him, because he gets on, you're behind all the time. This is a quote from Blake today, actually, because they asked him about the criticism that he's faced. I thought this was a great quote. He says, quote, they asked him about, what do you think about all the criticism of you? He says, quote, it'll probably never stop. There's people that think LeBron James sucks. So if that happens, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that think always think I suck.
It's interesting.
Way to address it head on.
No, it's wild. It's wild how people he's become the punchline within colleagues even. It's kind of crazy. So, yeah, he didn't play well against Buffalo. I mean, that was an awful game. I don't know if I should just apologize to Murph for sending him out there. I don't know. But 88 yards rushing, I think he had, 87 passing. He's going to have to play better for them to beat Pittsburgh. Not the only UCF guys during the playoffs this weekend, by the way. Latavius Murray with the Vikings will play the Saints on Sunday. So, big day for you. So we'll see if if there's a chance maybe we get a UCF player in the Super Bowl there. So that's going to be some of the interesting things I'll be following this weekend. I have a sideline gig coming out with UCF Women's Hoops against Tulane in the American Conference. That's a week from Wednesday. It's Wednesday the 17th. So I'll be doing that game and seeing how they come out.
Games, by the way, for UCF on the American Digital Network coming up.
Yeah, the 17th against Tulane. So I'll be a part of that one. I won't be a part of the one on the 20th, which is against SMU. My friend Despina Barton will be being sidelined for that one because, she's way better than me, so that's a good thing. And number one. And then number two, I think me and her are scheduled to broadcast SMU at USF women's basketball on Valentine's night. So they're that's kind of what's coming up. And oh, by the way, we're about a month away or so from softball and baseball seasons getting going.
Oh, my God, really?
Yeah, trust me, I've been counting the days.
Yeah, unbelievable. Well, hey, there's another championship we got to defend. So in terms of baseball coming up. So that'll be fun. And all right, that brings us to the end of this week's Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. A lot of folks to thank this week. Wanted to thank the folks, first of all, at Disney for allowing us to come on board. And I want to thank Tyler Grady, who finished up his ride with Night News and took some photos of the championship parade, which we'll get on the site very soon. Thanks to Tyler for his hard work in getting that done. He actually started his first job, his first job out of college, I should say, this week. But before he did, he took care of business for us. So I want to thank Tyler for his hard work this weekend. Also want to thank the Unger Real Estate Group for their continuing support of the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Visit WeSellOrlando.net or Facebook.com/WeSellOrlando. Thanks again to Derek Warden for his amazing photography at the Peach Bowl, as always. And thanks also to Brian Murphy for his hard work as well all throughout the year, and especially in the week of the bowl game, and as we move forward into basketball and baseball season as well. Thanks again to you, Lopez.
Thank you. I will be celebrating the national championship, the Dan Le Batard National Championship on the Clevelander with Dan and Stu. That's kind of, that's what I'm hoping for. Well, maybe not.
Send pictures. And thanks again to you, the listener.
Dan.
For Dan.
I love that. It's just great.
Chargers. Crazy. Not for real. It's excellent stuff. So thanks again to you, Lopez. And thanks again to you, the listeners. Don't forget to follow us at UCF_Banneret. Follow me at Jeff_Sharon. Follow Eric at Eric Lopez Elo. Brian at Spokes_Murphy, and Derek at _DS Warden. Follow us at Facebook.com/Black Gold Banneret. Like us, send us a holler. Let us know what you think. Also, blackandgoldbanneret.com for all the latest. And don't forget to tell your friends to subscribe to this podcast on Google Play, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. For Eric Lopez, I'm Jeff Sharon. Thanks so much for listening. This has been the Black Gold Banneret Podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.